A note to our listeners. The views and opinions expressed by our guests and hosts on the BLKFLA podcast are solely their own and do not reflect the official positions or views of any organizations, companies, or affiliations they may be associated with. Any statements made are personal opinions and should not be construed as representing their respective employers or organizations. As always, thanks for listening.
If revolution was a movie, I'd be theme music. Time to ignite what I spit is lighter fluid. Stepping into it, fixed rays, such a glorious design. Marching into the biggest fight of our lives. Time to spoil the
revolution. Welcome to the BLKFLA experience. We are a cultural archive for the Black political movement in the state of Florida, where our purpose is to help you reimagine a Florida where Black people are able to live in freedom, equity, and authenticity. Of course, we are your hosts, as always, Jamal Davis and
Chanae Jackson.
All right, and we are taking the time to dive into all things Black politics and Black culture, and this is very much a key piece of Black politics and Black culture, because at the time of this recording, June 30th, 2026, the Supreme Court has ruled in a 6-3 and 5-4 ruling that President Donald Trump, that whole executive order that you tried to write around birthright citizenship, is trash. It's whole trash. Nothing but trash. Completely trash. Figuratively and literally. Like, you can throw that whole executive order in the trash, because the 14th Amendment clearly states that if you were born in this country, you are a United States citizen. Unless there are special circumstances, and there are special circumstances that are to be named in that particular scenario, the situation that President Trump was trying to enact with this executive order, none of those special circumstances fall under that executive order. If you are born in this country, you are a United States citizen, and the United States Supreme Court upheld the 14th Amendment as they should. And myself and Chanae, along with so many other things, we want to come and have a quick discussion around this. So, Chanae, your thoughts? I have many. I have many.
Where do I even start? So I want to state that it was a win, but a very small win. So let's be very, very clear. We are dealing with people that keep utilizing the Constitution every which way the wind blows when it so benefits them. And I want to name that. I also want to really point out this split decision. So 6-3 people stated that they could not do it. It was illegal. It was against the Constitution. But there was a 5-4 split. So just by one vote. And it's important to really name what Kavanaugh actually stated. So while Kavanaugh stated that Trump could not do this through executive order, he did state that Congress could come back and actually pass this particular law. That is a huge door left open as we are seeing the things that are actually happening that are all willy-nilly, and we're watching a Congress do the bidding of this actual president with no recourse whatsoever. So even as we're celebrating, it did not happen today. The fact that this is even being considered at all is insane. And then the fact of this split and what the opinions actually are, people really need to take notice.
And I brought this up on Facebook in a jokingly but very accurate manner. It's surprising but not surprising. Surprising but not surprising. Now, one of the justices, whether through the 6-3 split or the 5-4 split, that actually was one of the 3 or the 4, is the Black guy. When the actual amendment that comes into question in this ruling is not an amendment in the first place without Black people, us. Like, this is the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, y'all will always hear me if y'all have a conversations with me, if y'all put me on panels, if I'm doing discussions. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment are always the amendments that I call the Reconstruction Amendments. I always call them the Civil War Amendments. And the reason why I call them the Civil War or post-Reconstruction Amendments is literally because you don't get those amendments if it ain't us. Like, we literally a few weeks ago just came out of celebrating Juneteenth. This being the 5th year that Juneteenth is an actual national holiday here in the United States of America. But this has been a celebration that has long been going on in Galveston, Texas, since the actual reading of the Emancipation Proclamation on June the 19th, 1865. But after the reading of the Emancipation Proclamation, we then have the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendments. 13th Amendment is, hey, slavery is done with, except if you get locked up. I really just gave you all the Cliff Notes version of the 13th Amendment.
Slavery. And also to name not only except if you get locked up, but then the other part is they criminalized everything. So you can get locked up for being unemployed. You can get locked up for assembling. Like a lot of people don't even know like laws like trespass and loitering are actually on the books because it was to stop Black people from assembling in order to be able to fight back on the things that were happening. You got locked up for economic independence. The reason that we have bail and bond is because when you locked a Black person up, you can make them give up an acre of their land. So literally, even bail and bond and incarceration was a way to commit land theft. Exactly. It's like people don't understand like those particular parts of it and what's actually what's happening. And so it's imperative for people to understand like what happened and what took place in this context and actually in so many.
And then you have the 14th Amendment, which is the amendment in question today, which clearly states that if you were born in the United States, no matter race, creed, sexual orientation, all the things, if you were born here, you from here. You are a citizen of this country. And then, of course, the 15th Amendment is the amendment that gave all people, and at that particular time, people for them were men, all people, the right to vote, which, of course, we all know that is another situation that comes into question thanks to 65 Voting Rights Act being gutted, Section 2 and Section 4. But we've had plenty of conversations about that on these episodes.
I'm actually glad you also named that so I can give a direct correlation. So even with the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 65 Voting Rights Act, that people actually don't realize, these things became necessary because of the Dred Scott decision. So when we're talking about redistricting, we keep referencing that they're trying to take us back to the Dred Scott decision, which literally stated that we were 3/5 of the people. Well, the other part of that decision is the 14th Amendment. This was written to kill Dred Scott entirely because Dred Scott stated that we could never be citizens. And there's a complexity to this that we're not talking about a lot because you're referencing people that were bought over by the transatlantic slave trade. You're also ignoring or erasing the people that are actually here that are Black, that are indigenous to the actual land that was actually stolen. And so if you don't actually really pay attention to the actual correlations for people who keep stating that redistricting is about Republican versus Democrat, no, it's not. It's about Black people. This whole deal, even with this decision and with birthright citizenship, people kept thinking it was an attack on immigrants. No, it's an attack on Black people.
And there are so many people who, anytime that we have these conversations in mixed spaces, i.e. these voting rights coalitions, these election protection coalitions, these election safeguard coalitions, whenever they bring up the fact that what we are doing as far as their organizations, what we are doing is continuing to fight democracy. Okay, well, what is the reason as to why you have to have a fight for democracy to begin with?
Yep.
Because let's be perfectly clear, there would never have to be a fight for democracy unless all of these amendments that we just named, all of these statutes, whether you're 64 civil rights, 65 voting rights, 68 fair housing, all of these things would not be the case for you to have to fight democracy if none of these things had to be in place. If it was simply just the first 10 amendments, which are affectionately known as the Bill of Rights, if it was just the first 10, we wouldn't be having this discussion to begin with around the fight for democracy, because but the first 10, I like to always say that the first 10 amendments of the United States Constitution are the amendments that the original forefathers wanted in order for this to be the lily white nation that Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance so eloquently state to you all that they want this nation to continually be. These things are called amendments for a reason. They are amending things that are already in the Constitution that have to be changed because there are other people who don't fit into rich, white, cisgendered men.
That's right.
Rich, white, cisgendered men fit very well into the first 10 amendments. Everything
and let me
else,
state too, that's by design, because there's two fatal flaws in the Constitution.
Yep.
One is the position that was taken as it related to slavery. There was not one that was taken that should have been. And they upheld slavery because so many of the people who write the Constitution were slave owners. And so we dress it up and say a percentage of them were like property owners. Let's be very clear that a lot of that property was slaves. And then the other property that they owned was land that was actually stolen. And then the other part is they created it and made it impossible for the people to take the wealth that they themselves had stolen, whether you're looking at the labor or the land. And because we don't like to have real conversations about that, or when we're in mixed spaces that makes people uncomfortable, it is one of the reasons that we are actually here today. And it's one of the reasons that so many things are happening to other people. Our refusal to address how all of the attacks are rooted in anti-Blackness. It is the reason that harm is coming to so many people. Saw the other day, but I see multiple times that people are stating that no matter what happens in this election, we need to vote blue no matter who, and we should unite, because it's always unite. And if we don't unite, then we're going to fall under fascism. Black people have been under fascism since the inception of the country. What is it that you're saying? And what they're actually stating is that fascism is okay as long as it's Black people that are being impacted by it. But now the other people are being impacted. We should do something about it. And Black people should be the ones to help us to do something about it. And I'm going to be very clear. So those of us that are Black people, we're going to work and we're going to fight like hell up into the election. But what actually is going to happen is we're not going to unite and help elect other corporate Democrats who actually are very okay with the things that are happening. The fact that all of these things are happening at breakneck speed, and they've exhibited, and we can't do this about this. We don't have any power, but now all of a sudden you want to defect from the actual party as it relates to those things. None of that makes any sense whatsoever. The fact that you now have energy and power because people who actually care about people are now winning is absolutely absurd.
None. Like, I mean, and it's ridiculously crazy to even think that. So first and foremost, every movement that Black liberation has built is an anti-fascist movement. So we have already seen in countless eras ways that we have defeated fascism. And that is the reason the majority of the time when we get to these spaces of hey guys, y'all gotta come out. Y'all gotta come out. Y'all gotta vote. And black people, y'all gotta come through and y'all gotta help us. Y'all gotta help us in these movements to defeat XYZ. The question becomes, well, why do you continuously want black labor, but you never want the voices to be the ones that are spotlighted and profiled in the forefront? It's always Jasmine Crockett isn't good enough to be a United States Senator for the state of Texas. But when it's James Tallarico that's the Democratic nominee, then it's, well, why is Jasmine Crockett running around saying that she's unsure as to whether or not she's going to support James Tallarico in November? We need Jasmine Crockett to come on board, because if she doesn't come on board, then the people that voted for her are not going to come on board with us.
We only know who James Tallarico is because he ran against Jasmine Crockett.
Literally.
And I want to name that. It is very clear that they want black labor, but they don't want black leadership. And they've made that crystal clear. And that's the reason that we get a church branch, or we want to go to churches on Sunday, but there's no real investment in black communities, and there's no real investment in black candidates. And not only is there no real investment in black communities or candidates, but they take an extra step in bringing people from outside of our communities and outside of our states in order to come in and run for office to support and to represent people that they don't know and don't care enough to get to know, because in their minds, they are a shoo-in because the party actually said so. And my frustration is, we talk a lot and we go back to the days, we call them the good old days when Gillum ran, because the detriment that has been done in the 8 years since that particular time. They always say that black people can't win in the South. Well, why is that? Because our allies are not voting for black people, because our party is not investing in black people. So let's talk about why black people, so you say, can't win. But what's interesting is, especially in a place like Florida or the Texases and things of the world, is how big our population is and the actual power that we actually have that is being minimized, and people are being brainwashed so that they don't wield that particular power. And not only is it that they don't know if Jasmine Crockett can actually be a senator, but she was actually a House of Reps in the U.S. Congress. Tallarico is a school teacher. The way that we are showing we're anti-black, without saying that we're anti-black, the way that they use the old monikers, old ghetto and loud, we should be loud. The most powerful things that we have is our actual voice. We should be sounding the alarms and shouting from the rooftops. The issue with us being loud is it makes people feel uncomfortable. And if people feel uncomfortable, they might realize that something is actually wrong. And then they can't keep blaming people for not showing up. They can't keep blaming people for not being invested. Then people actually have to start to look at them and wonder, why is it that people won't be invested? It's interesting that even in Florida, Florida is the testing ground for everything. That Democrats are still 30 points underwater behind Republicans. So Republicans are net -1, which means they're only unfavorable by a -1, while Democrats in this state are unfavorable by a -31. In a state where our primary elections are closed, meaning people can't even go vote for a candidate in our primary elections on August the 18th. They would actually have to register for one of the parties. People are choosing to be NPA and not vote at all, or people are en masse are now registering so that they can vote for Angie Nixon. And that should say something, that people don't feel represented by anyone, so they don't want to align with a party, but now they feel represented by this one person, so they're willing to change their voter registration, to the point people now are reaching out to let us know that they're actually making it super difficult. It used to be very easy to change your party designation. Now you have to go to the state's website in order to be able to do it, and then hope that the state doesn't do something shady.
I was watching this video today on Instagram, and it was an Instagram influencer teacher that I like to watch, and they were saying, like, these are the top 10 things that people say about Black people when they're saying the N word but don't want to use the N word. And she started naming these things. And so these are, for me, loud and ghetto, yes. But one of the things that she didn't name because it wasn't a video that was specific to politics and the political infrastructure is unelectable. Because they love to use that. Love to use that one. They love to use unelectable, and they love to use not enough experience. When in actuality, we're going to look at Texas. We're going to look at Texas and Florida, considering Texas is the number one state in the country with the highest population of Black people in it. And number two is Florida. Over here in Texas, it's so many things that it's so many ideological differences that we can bring up when it comes to Representative Jasmine Crockett. But the one thing that you cannot bring up when it comes to Representative Jasmine Crockett is the fact that she has the word representative in her name every time that we say Representative Jasmine Crockett. There is your experience. There is your electability.
Even outside of that, we're talking about a very successful civil rights attorney.
Literally.
So successful, in fact, that the other side tried to come for her about her level of success. Let's be clear, so successful at actually being a representative that she is a name when so many people don't even know who some of the other representatives actually are coming out of Texas. Like the way people miss the point and make it at the same time actually needs to be studied. And the way that we show up and work twice as hard only to get half as far, be the ones who are actually the qualified ones, and people still tell us that we're not qualified. And the only thing that disqualifies us is how much melanin we have in our skin.
And the whole thing with her not being supportive of James Tallarico, when Jasmine Crockett literally has a PAC that she is utilizing to help down ballot races in her state get funded for them to have a better chance to win in November. And those down ballot races, if those down ballot races are successful, what is that going to say to the top of the ticket items, which includes the United States Senate? Now let's go to the other state, the Grand Ole.
Well, before you hop over, let's talk about how y'all don't want Black women to have the job and then still think that they're supposed to do whatever the job actually entails and are upset when they don't. So we can go to Kamala, who I'm very clear was not my presidential candidate until she was the one left in the race. And then out of all of the people in the race, she was 300% better. Two things can be true at the same time. So no, she was not my top choice, but by the time we had the people that was left, she was hands down better than anyone else in the actual race. And that's what you use to justify the Black woman not getting the job. They gave every reason in the world for Jasmine Crockett not to get the job, but then they want her to leverage her power as if she has the job. And I am challenging everyone to push back and say, hell no. I'm challenging us to stop allowing the Democratic Party to take us for granted and think that they're going to tokenize us. And that is a very uncomfortable conversation to have in this moment. But the fact that they don't even attempt to make us feel represented in a meaningful way, the fact that Tallarico doesn't even know how to begin to engage Black voters that you're depending on in order to be able to win, I challenge everybody to say, nope, we're going to stop being your dependable voting bloc until you actually appreciate us and invest in us.
And as the candidate, as the nominee, it's tradition for you to reach out to the individual that was defeated if you want to build coalition with them in order to bring their voting bloc over for you to be able to win that particular seat. Tallarico has not yet done that. Because if Tallarico had done that, then Representative Jasmine Crockett, as real as she is, would have clearly stated to y'all, Tallarico's team reached out. I stated to them that I stated to them that I had not yet made my decision, XYZ. None of that has been said. The only thing that's been said is Jasmine Crockett's team has stated that Representative Crockett is unsure. Nothing else.
That's it.
Literally nothing else. Like you all have had so much to say. It's like, oh, she take APAC money. My man is literally in a picture with the head of APAC.
And a Trump supporter, but what's her name? The big Trump supporter that actually has donated to his campaign.
I know who you're talking. I know who you're talking
Then
about.
Madeline or something like that. Just the fact of how they're so. And in this moment, there was a time I was diplomatic enough to believe you support whatever party you want to. I would be one if I lived in an open primary state. I would be an MPA. So I fully understood that. But we're in a moment where the same fascism that we've been subjected to is now out in the open for everyone. And your position is still to be Republican light. And for me, I hate to utilize that terminology because this is bigger than the actual parties. But the willfulness to ignore the harm that is being brought to people, the way they have sat on their laurels as our immigrant neighbors have been sent out of this country, detained in all of these malicious conditions, families separated, people sent to countries they are not familiar with, just the heinousness of the things that they have done. The way that they've started a war with our money as they're defunding invaluable programs that people are entitled to. I hear people say, well, the people that are losing Medicaid and SNAP are not entitled to those benefits. They absolutely are. If the people's money is not utilized to take care of the people, then why are the people giving up their money?
Yet we spend billions and billions of dollars on a war that two wars actually, Israel/Palestine and Iran. Neither one of these we asked for. Neither one of these we asked for. It's like so then going into the situation with Florida. So this has been my thing ever since we have had this current situation that we have with the Senate race in Florida. I'm like, so everything that we complained that Representative Jasmine Crockett was doing, none of this y'all can say about the Florida version of this. Well, Representative Crockett take APAC money. As recently as a few days ago, Track APAC PAC, which is the PAC that tracks who takes APAC money, has endorsed State Representative Angie Nixon for the United States Senate race here in the state of Florida. Not only does she not take APAC money or any related PAC money that is related to a pro-Israel stance, in 2023, she was the actual sponsor of a resolution on the Florida State House floor for the entire Florida State Legislature to call for a ceasefire in Palestine. She was only one of two House representatives, the other one, State Representative Anna Eskamani, who voted in favor of said resolution. Two State House representatives voted in favor of this resolution. State Representative Anna Eskamani and the sponsor of said resolution, State Representative Angie Nixon. So then we get to the other thing. Well, Representative Crockett is unelectable because she's loud and she's boisterous. Yes, State Representative Angie Nixon is very loud and very boisterous, but that does not make her unelectable. That actually makes her the perfect person to be elected in said position. Because what do y'all want?
Well, you know, my position is fuck decorum.
That
and so I want to name that particular thing. So even when they utilize that in that coded language, we're talking about people who dressed up in their Sunday best to attend the lynchings of us. We're talking about people who raped our people as a method to make more money, to have more of a workforce. I literally want to be the person that is so loud that they can't stand it. The person that is so boisterous and so confident on behalf of people that are truly being harmed. That is the person that we need. I think people want, even when I see, well, she has no chance of beating Ashley Moody in November. Why not? not just because Florida has the largest amount of Black people, but the way that she has governed in the state legislature, the way that she has shown up in response to the things that's actually being harmed, the way that she has been a union member, the way that she was the executive director of Florida for All, which is the largest IE organization in the state, the way that she was the executive director of this alignment organization that brought 6 power building organizations together. Help to sell to me, because it sounds good. And you said, well, she can't because, she doesn't raise a bunch of money, because she cares about people. She's raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, and her average donation is $22 because she actually cares about people. What people are not talking about is her thousands of volunteers, her over 100 fellows that work 12 to 15 hours a week. Her opponent doesn't have that. But not only that, her willingness to show up across the state in places that people have forgotten about. And it's important to her because she says she's representing the entire state. The unwillingness of her opponent to even be in the same room as a candidate for a candidate forum or a debate. If you won't stand up to your opponent, and not even stand up to, be in the same room to answer questions with your opponent in a primary where it's friendly, help me to understand how you're the person that's going to help save us from this administration and Trump. And his supporters can't sell me. They can't tell us.
You won't even acknowledge your primary opponent when she's brought up in interviews. You won't even acknowledge your primary opponent when she's brought up in conversations. When people go to your little house parties or discussions that you have around your campaign, and they bring your primary opponent up in a question, you won't even acknowledge that question when it comes to the actual primary opponent. I also am sick of when she was in the state legislature, she didn't get anything done. She didn't pass any bills. She didn't move
Who
any.
expected that, though?
She didn't
so
move
we're
any
being
legislation.
honest. Yeah, let's be honest about that as well. So she moved a lot of legislation. She just allowed the others to take credit for it because it was about the people and not about her and her ego. So that's the first thing. But we're in a state with a trifecta, which means we don't have any power in the Senate. We don't have any power in the House, and we don't have any power in the governor's mansion. So even when people state that, what was it that she was supposed to push? But even outside of that, what has her primary opponent pushed? He's so qualified. What did he do? They said, well, he stood up to Trump. Did he stand up to Trump, or did he actually do his job? So standing up to Trump in the affirmative and just actually doing your actual job, they're not the same thing. And I want to make sure that we center that. Standing up for people is what Angie did when she filed that cease resolution. Standing up for people is what she did when she staged that protest on the House floor in 2022 about those maps. Standing up for people is what she did this year when she sounded the alarm with that bullhorn, and even when she was arrested just for wanting an actual meeting with the governor. That's what you do when you actually stand up. Standing up for someone is not something you happen to do or you're riding a fence or the opportunity presents itself. You create the opportunity to stand up for people when things actually happen. And I think what's interesting is when we're having these conversations, it's so interesting the number of people that she has shown up for that are not showing up for her in this moment in perceived positions of power. And that is the will. So that is why I want the will of the people to understand that we have the power to circumvent and go all the way around that. And we have the power that after she wins, because she will win, to hold all of those people accountable.
Being a progressive candidate is another thing that is used against her when it comes to can she be elected in the state of Florida. And I would like to, and these are measures that I would like to bring up. The first measure that I would like to bring up is that in 2018, Andrew Gillum was the Democratic nominee for the governor's mansion here in the state of Florida. Andrew Gillum only lost by 35,000 votes. And there was a bunch of votes that was not counted down in Broward County because the then governor at the time Rick Scott told the Department of Elections to halt counting on said ballots once they did the second recount, and the second recount came out in his favor to be the next United States Senator representing the state of Florida, beating out Bill Nelson, who, by the way, they had to make sure that they did 2 recounts on his race as well. Because when you have a valuable candidate that can carry the top of the ticket, it helps all of the other races down ballot. Let me show y'all.
Let's also name that he became the Democratic nominee without the support of the party. So let's name that thing without the support of the party.
And let me make sure y'all understand something. David Jolly is not a strong enough candidate to carry the top of the ticket. I can tell y'all somebody who is a strong enough candidate to carry the top of the ticket, Angela Nixon. Let's be clear about that. So if you put somebody who is credible, has electability, has experience, and has done the work, not just in the legislative space, but also in the organizing space, at the top of the ticket, you are going to move people who see themselves in her.
Let me put the data to it for you. So with Jolly, the random no-name Democratic candidate is favored by 79%. Jolly as the name candidate is favored by 69%. A no-name candidate has 10 points higher than him as the named candidate.
For governor. For governor. So Andrew loses by only 35,000 votes. But if we were able to count all of the votes,
let me tell you what else I learned. So people who signed up through the Democratic Party in order to volunteer, they weren't activated or called for his campaign, for his race. They were called to volunteer for other people.
Because the only way that I was able to, in 2018, the only way that I was able to volunteer for Andrew Gillum's campaign was through a paid internship through Dream Defenders and through Vote Mob. Which, funny thing, the actual person that was my actual supervisor during the Dream Defenders Vote Mob internship for the Andrew Gillum campaign was State Representative Angie Nixon. Like, there's so many like actual connections.
The thing that she has done.
To the real work that she's done on the ground. Yep. But also, if we also have to also look at the fact that any progressive measure that has been on the ballot here in the state of Florida has always won by over 50%. Now, granted, these ballot initiatives have to win by 60%, but if we
they only have to win by 60% in order to rig the game. So let's be clear. The thing that is interesting about Florida, so that's when they say Florida is rigged, it really is not. You can tell our ballot initiatives show just how much impact gerrymandering actually has. So Florida doesn't have a state income tax because of a ballot initiative. Returning citizens got their right to vote back because of a ballot initiative. Yep. We raised our state minimum wage because of a ballot initiative.
We are supposed to have fair maps.
Yes, because of a ballot initiative in 2010. So I want to name, even with the abortion, yes on 4, which will stop government interference in abortion, although it did not pass, that 57, almost 58% it got is the highest that any ballot initiative on abortion has ever gotten in the entire country. And not only that, a number is higher than any governor or president has actually ever gotten in Florida. And what it shows you is that, and that's why Florida needs something else like proportional representation, which is more than this 2-party system, is that when you remove the party attachment to things, people actually show up and vote in their best interest. And so even more data and polling that actually has been done this year, what you actually see and you learn is that Democrats, so people who are registered as Democrats, are the ones who have the most energy for holding their party accountable. And then with Republicans, they still do not. And so even though they're unhappy with their party, they do not. But both people in both parties want something else. They're both tired of the two-party system. And so we understand that there's huge value in actually bringing something else. And so I always challenge people that in this moment, by someone like Angie winning, that shows what the people actually want. It will be very easy by 2028 to give the people something else. And so, and I want to name, when you say a progressive candidate, let's talk about what they're stating as progressive. What is, and that seems to be horrible, is that she wants childcare, universal childcare, which in New Mexico they passed. And what they realized is by having this measure, one of the reasons that it passed is it puts like 59 either million or $1 billion back into the economy in the state of New Mexico. So people actually having childcare actually benefits the state's economy. She wants people to be able to afford where they live and have quality housing. She wants people to be able to afford their utility bills. She wants people to live in neighborhoods and communities that are not being demolished because of climate issues. She wants our neighbors all to be protected. So it doesn't matter if you're an immigrant or U.S. born or whatever it is, to have thriving communities. The fact that the issue that people have with her is that she's on the right side of everything is the most insane.
Everything.
To the point they try to manufacture things because there's nothing that actually is true. I tell people also to watch when she posts things, the things that people attempt to troll her about. So when she's stating that we all can have nice things, you know what kind of depraved person you have to be to troll a person that's saying that even you can have something better and you can have a better quality of life.
The person that's trolling me can have something better. The person that's trolling me deserves a better life. Now, I would be a person, especially within the Democratic Party, I would be a person that would support a candidate such as State Representative Angie Nixon. Unfortunately, we have seen time and time again in countless situations just how much the actual party has not supported her. Let's go back to March the 14th, DEC weekend in Jacksonville, how one candidate was told 3 months in advance, hey, this is the amount that you have to pay. This is what you need to speak on, XYZ. The other candidate was told less than 3 days.
Not even that. You came to that candidate's neck of the woods and backyard. She was entitled to be the person to welcome you all to her city because it's actually her city. So whether you gave her the opportunity to be a sponsor or not, she should not have to do any of those things. She literally should have been built into the program because it was her city. Just as if you had gone to his city, just as if you're going to my city and it was my rep that was here. You're in my backyard. The audacity of that, it's absurd. Or even watching they did a virtual forum with the Democratic Hispanic Caucus.
That was my next thing.
So many of us were there to see what happened. And the level of gaslighting that has taken place as if we saw something that we did not see. And it was so bold and it was so blatant is what I'm getting. And more energy has been trying to absolve people from holding them accountable than the harm that was actually caused to her. The fact that she was kicked off a call that she was supposed to be a part of 3 times. The fact that the president was so nasty to her. The president blatantly fawned all over her opponent. And I think what's interesting is when you watch Rep. Nixon, her deal is, I want you all to choose the best person, which I think we all do, but that means choose the best person. Don't choose your side when this guy is more boring than the actual paper bag. He does not have any platform. He does not have an actual track record. So all of the things that you say that you're utilizing to gauge on who should be the next person, he doesn't possess any of those things. She possesses all of them. And so there's that level of absurdity. And then now I'm even watching that people who are members of, and some Black people of the Democratic Party, I've been waiting because they wanted with that situation, but they were going to get together for them to have something to say about Rep. Nixon. They didn't. What they decided to do was to start to attack the president of the Black Democratic Caucus. what's interesting to me is all the things that you said happened. So wait a minute. This president of this caucus did all these things, and you had nothing to say and no energy until he called out what they did to Angie.
Mhm.
I was born that night, but it wasn't last night.
Last night. It's like, and also it's and also also it's not lost on me that the only way that I know that Alexander Vindman exists is, number one, because of the fact that he's not from here and that he actually moved to this state three years ago.
Oh,
Because
no,
of
no, 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 no. He pays for the registration. He didn't actually get an address until 2025.
Secondly, I only know that he exists because of his whistleblower job against the president of the United States. I also know that he exists because he is a pure, unadulterated genocide denier. And I also know that he exists because he's running against state representative. And that's literally the only four reasons that
He
I know that
won't
he
show up
exists.
for you to get to know him. So, like everyone that I've talked to, and I'm an organizer, this is what I do. Their frustration is, I might like him, I might want to get to know him, but he won't even show up for us to be able to do that. The frustration for people is we don't know anything about him. The frustration is the party is like, even Chuck Schumer just and James Carville, these awful people have endorsed him, and he's offered nothing to the people.
Nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The day that you all were in Montgomery, Alabama for All Roads Leads to the South, that same day, he had a campaign house party here in Duval County. We all know that when it comes to Democrats, the largest number of Democrats that are in Duval County are Black Democrats. Largest number of registered Democrats in Duval County are Black Democrats. You did not have your campaign house party on the north side. You did not have your campaign house party on the west side. You did not have it in Durkeeville. You had it in Jacksonville Beach. I know because somebody from Jacksonville Beach sent me through my email the actual invite for his campaign house party, stating, "Hey, so you should come through and ask these questions." And if I didn't want to be home to watch the full All Roads Leads to the South rally, I'd have been in Jacksonville Beach asking those very, very, very timely questions. But I had something better to do with my life, which is support my organization that I work for and support my three friends that hit the stage to represent the state of Florida for All Roads Leads to the South. Final question for you, Chanae, is us addressing anti-Blackness, not just within organizing spaces, but also within party spaces, has gotten the conversation to be, okay, we've been saying time and time again that it's anti-Blackness within the party. We've been saying time and time again that it's anti-Blackness within organizations. That's fine. Now, what do we do? What's the next steps? Because y'all can't just keep saying that it's anti-Blackness and we ain't got no plans.
Me, it is a both and. Just like I'm stating, even as it relates to government, we build something else and we hold them accountable as we're building something else. Mm-hmm. And you do that for two reasons. So number one, when we build something else, they can't say that they didn't know it was coming. They don't know how it happened. But also number two, there are some structures and things that actually are working. But right now, the Democratic Party is just like, it is. When people say that they are two sides of the same coin, they are. The difference is that there's some individuals that are within the party that actually really do care, who really are about the principles that they say that they are. And the way that we get to something else and something different is by we supporting those. We saw what happened in New York when people showed up and supported Zoran. Exactly. And it's exactly why they didn't want him to win. They didn't want him to win because they thought he would fail. Because if they thought he would fail, they just would have sat back and allowed that to do. They knew his success would put them on notice. They knew that there are actual solutions for people's material needs. They know that these things are possible and they can stop saying that there's not balanced budgets. And so that call to action, often we get frustrated and we exit things because we can't navigate them. I see it with the NAACP. I see it with the party and different things. The way that we, number one, get accountable and get the change that we need to see is we stand and we hold them accountable and we fight. We fight them on it. The fact that the party's ideology changed because of the power and Black voting power means that we leverage that particular power. We have the actual power. They keep stating that Angie can't win in Florida. Black people literally should stand up in droves and be the reason that she wins. And then there's no more conversation that needs to be had.
Mm-hmm.
Black people activate and say, okay, you're going to keep playing on our top. We're going to show you a few things. And we've always done that. And so they want us, I've come to realize that, and I couldn't figure it out before, they want us demobilized. Because if we are demobilized, then we don't demand power. If we're demobilized, we don't hold them accountable for their anti-Blackness. They utilize us being demobilized as their excuse to be anti-Black, when literally that's not what happened. What happened is we became demobilized because of the anti-Blackness, and we got tired of fighting within the system. And so there's this huge opportunity, and we saw it with Stacey Abrams. People fail to realize Stacey Abrams was a party outsider. She's not a party darling. And the first thing that happened after Gilliam's loss was, we need people in Florida like Stacey Abrams. We have them. Y'all don't listen. And the people, some of Trump's biggest supporters were Bernie people. So that tells you that the people want something different, and they're willing to blow it up. They're willing to put out this fire with gasoline if they have to.
In order to get it, we have 2.2 to 2.4 million registered Black voters here in the state of Florida, out of that 3.9 million Black people who live in the state of Florida. I feel like we can get some more registered Black voters between now and July 20th, which is the deadline for you all to register to vote in this August primary, which is going to be August the 18th. And as we stated before on this broadcast and every other episode, if you are not registered with a party and want to vote for a candidate that's part of either the Democrat or Republican Party, you have to be registered under that party because this is a closed primary. Yes, there's going to be other stuff on your ballot if you're registered as an MPA, but you ain't going to be able to vote for this Senate race. You're not going to be able to vote for this governor's race unless you are registered with a party. So make sure that you are, so that way your voice can actively be heard in which candidate you want to move forward in the November general election.
And I also want to name that, like that final point where you made that point, because people don't understand why it's the importance. We always say we end up with the lesser of two evils. One of the ways that we end up with the lesser of two evils is our not participating in primary elections. So we don't want to be stuck with the lesser of two evils in November. That means we must show up in droves in August to prevent that from happening.
Listen, and there are many candidates that are on the ballot during this primary season that don't have to put you in the position of feeling like you're choosing the lesser of two evils. We've had a couple of them already on our episodes throughout all of our seasons that we've had. So listen, check us out. Whoever we be having on these episodes, those are the people that actively do the work and do real work and are people that y'all should know about. So listen, as always, we continue to thank y'all for showing love and appreciation and joining us on this BLKFLA experience. Y'all stay free, stay blessed, and as always, continue to get acquainted with greatness. We are out.
You know, one mind, about to bring it to you. If Revolution was a movie, I'd be theme music. Time to ignite what I spit is like a fluid. Stepping into it, fixed rays, such a glorious design. Marching into the biggest fight of our lives. Time to spoil the revolution.